Honey, we need to talk. How many men, I wonder, have heard those words? How many marriages and dreams have been shattered by them? Sure, Debbie, whatever you want, I replied distractedly, my eyes not fully leaving the TV screen as my wife of 14 years walked into the room. And who is that young man with you? I asked, noting the unfamiliar presence beside her. Well, Charlie, she started, her voice laced with hesitation. That's Michael, and he's the one I want to talk to you about. I looked at them, my gaze flicking between my wife, who was still the picture of beauty at 36, and the young man standing beside her, no older than 23. His smile, was it smugness or something else? Didn't sit well with me. It definitely didn't look good. What about Michael? I asked, struggling to mask my unease. Debbie cleared her throat, gathering her composure. Charlie, you probably know that the intimacy between us hasn't been very fulfilling lately. I don't know how you could say that, Debbie, I muttered. I thought everything was fine. Come on, Charlie, honey, she continued, her eyes not quite meeting mine. You know as well as I do that our sex life has been, well, lacking excitement for a while now. Not exciting? I repeated, confusion creeping into my voice. What do you mean by that? She paused, visibly uncomfortable. I mean that maybe you're not giving me everything I need, Charlie. How do you know that? I shot back, my frustration building. We haven't even been intimate in the last 6 weeks, so how can you say it hasn't been good? Debbie glanced at Michael, seeking reassurance before looking back at me. Her face showed a flicker of guilt. Charlie, Michael interjected, his voice a bit too confident. What Debbie is trying to say? I didn't want to hear it. I stood up from my chair, cutting him off. I don't know you, and I certainly don't appreciate being spoken to like that. It's Mr. Martin to you. Michael's face flushed a bright red, clearly embarrassed by my interruption. But he managed to hold his ground, choosing not to retaliate. That was 1 point for me, I thought. Leave it to me, Michael, Debbie spoke up, her tone now firm as she turned back to me. Look, Charlie, it's not that I don't still love you. I think about you all the time. I can't imagine life without you. So, you're not saying you've fallen for someone else? I asked, my voice tinged with dread. No, of course not. Debbie rushed to reassure me, though her words sounded somewhat hollow. Well, not exactly. She hesitated, clearly struggling with the truth. But I've changed, Charlie. I think, spiritually, I've grown. I need some space to, well, find myself. Find yourself? I echoed, trying to understand. You mean you need the freedom to be with him? Michael shifted uncomfortably but remained silent. Debbie gave him a glance before responding. Charlie, please. It's not like that, I swear. It's just that I feel this need for a deeper connection. Something that's missing with us, but it's not about love, I promise. It's about expanding myself. Expanding yourself? I scoffed. You mean by being with him, cheating on me? Debbie's face flushed with discomfort and she took a deep breath, clearly trying to keep her composure. Charlie, you're not making this easy. I was silent for a moment, then shrugged. I wouldn't want to make things hard for you while you find yourself. She gave a small sigh of relief. Thank you, Charlie. That means a lot to me. But what do you actually want, Debbie? I asked, not letting her off the hook so easily. She looked at Michael, who nodded, clearly preparing to reveal their plan. After a quiet exchange between them, she turned back to me. Well, we've been thinking, Charlie, she began. What if we could continue like we are, but I also go out with Michael a few times a week? We'll still have everything else and I'll always come back for breakfast with you just like before. Breakfast? I said, raising an eyebrow. You mean the meals I still make for you every morning? She nodded, her smile weak but hopeful. Yes, exactly. You'll hardly notice the difference, I promise. And you think that's fair for the both of us? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Yes, she said, her voice soft but determined. Michael and I have thought this through. We can maintain our life together, but I can explore this new side of me too. What a load of nonsense, I muttered, shaking my head. So, we continue as we have for the last few weeks? Me completely neglected and him, prickly Mickey, coming and going as he pleases? Her face dropped at my words and Michael's clenched fists were an obvious sign of his anger. Please, Charlie, don't make this harder than it needs to be, she pleaded, stepping closer to me. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't want to make things difficult for you while you find yourself. She took a deep breath, nodding in understanding. But we haven't heard your side yet, have we? What exactly are you asking for? I demanded, feeling the heat rise in my chest. Well, Charlie, what I'm saying is that I need to experience this, and I hope you can be open-minded about it. I still love you, but I need this for me. I stared at them, the reality of it sinking in. The audacity of it all. Then I turned to Michael, flashing a grin. You know, Mickey, maybe I'll entertain Debbie once in a while too. Would you mind? His face froze, his smile faltering. Whatever you say, man, he responded, his voice thick with pride. But just so you know, she'll never enjoy it as much as she does with me. Debbie quickly scolded him, but I saw the tension in her eyes, the guilt and the fear of how far things had gone. After a long silence, I finally spoke, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Sounds like the same thing to me. The moment my words landed, silence fell over the room. Debbie stood frozen, her mouth hanging open in disbelief, while Mickey Boy surged forward, fists clenched, eyes blazing with fury. "Leave Linda out of this, you bastard," he spat, his voice trembling with anger. I met his rage with a calm, almost amused smile. "Sorry, Mickey, but your wife Linda is already involved," I told him smoothly, watching the words hit their mark. He stormed toward me, fists raised, but Debbie caught his arm, pulling him back. "Don't, Michael," she pleaded, her voice urgent. His body trembled with barely restrained fury. "I'll kill the bastard," he shouted, his glare searing through me. Debbie, still gripping his arm, leaned in close, her voice dropping to a taunting whisper. "An old bastard like him, Michael?" She smirked. "Believe me, you don't stand a chance. If you hit him, you'll regret it." She was right, of course. Mickey was younger, no doubt. He probably spent hours at the gym, sculpting himself into a picture of strength. But I had built my own construction empire from the ground up, and in that time, I had learned how to handle men much tougher than this kid. His fists slowly lowered as hesitation flickered across his face. A shame. Would have been fun. Maybe another time. Debbie turned to me, her voice sharpened with suspicion. "Why are you bringing Michael's wife into this?" I barely spared her a glance. "I'm not the one involving her," I said casually. "She was the one who contacted me a month ago and told me what was going on, between you two." Mickey's face paled, his anger giving way to shock. Debbie looked equally stunned. God, I was starting to enjoy this. A long silence stretched between us, the weight of my revelation pressing down on them. We stood there, 3 players in a game neither of them realized they had already lost. Debbie was the first to recover. "Are you going to admit to me, Charlie, that you really did have sex with Linda?" I let the words hang for a moment before answering, relishing the tension. "If you mean did I make love to her?" I said, my tone rich with satisfaction. "Then the answer is yes. It started as revenge sex for both of us about 4 weeks ago. But I'm happy to tell you, it's become much more than that." "You're lying, you bastard." Mickey burst out, his voice shaking with disbelief. "My wife won't go to bed with anyone but me. And especially not an old bastard like you." I arched a brow and glanced at Debbie. She didn't look pleased with the old remark. We were the same age after all. What did that make her? A tired old cow? I turned back to Mickey, my lips curling into a smirk. "You need proof?" I taunted. "Want me to describe her special rose tattoo? Tell you exactly where it is?" His expression twisted into something ugly. He knew then. Knew I'd seen his wife naked, had explored every inch of her, had made her mine in ways he never had. "You're lying," he choked out. "Linda doesn't do that." "Not for you, sunshine," I said, my voice dripping with amusement. "But I've convinced her it can be a lot of fun. She's thrilled. Maybe if you'd spent more time experimenting with her instead of screwing my wife, things would have turned out differently." Mickey's fury exploded. He shoved Debbie's hand away and stormed toward the door. "I'm leaving," he shouted. "I'm going to show that damn wife of mine what's what." I let out a low chuckle. "Wait, Mickey," I called, pulling a key from my pocket and holding it up between my fingers. His eyes narrowed. "I have my own damn key, you idiot." "Not like this one," I told him smoothly. "We changed the locks on your house." The blood drained from his face. "Beautiful." I stretched lazily, finally standing up from my seat for the first time. "Well, I'll be off then," I said cheerfully. "If you need me, you know where I'll be." Debbie let out a strangled cry. "What about your stuff, Charlie?" Her voice cracked and the first tears spilled down her cheeks. "You can't just walk away from me like that, darling." "Oh, but I can, sweetheart," I told her with a smirk. "Everything I need is already at Linda's place, or packed in my car. Maybe this will give you a little extra space to expand into." Her gaze darted around the room, her breath hitching as she noticed, for the first time, all the things that were missing. Her face crumpled as she sobbed, throwing herself toward me. I stepped back, holding up a hand to stop her. "Keep the house, keep the car. My lawyer will be in touch about everything else." "But how am I supposed to live, Charlie?" she whimpered, her voice small, desperate. I tilted my head, feigning sympathy. "You have a part-time job, Debbie," I reminded her. "And maybe Mickey will support you. Though that might be tough, considering Linda's dad is firing him first thing tomorrow morning." As I walked toward the front door, I glanced back one last time. The difference in them was striking. Just half an hour ago they had been so full of confidence, so certain they had me fooled. Now they were nothing but wreckage. I smiled. "Goodbye, Mickey," I said as I stepped out. "It was nice meeting you." "Goodbye, Debbie. Thanks for everything." I didn't look back as I closed the door behind me. But as I walked down the path to my car, their shouting and screaming echoed after me. It would cost me $100,000 to get rid of Debbie, but it was a small price to pay. She had cheated before. I had forgiven before. But this time I felt nothing for her. No anger. No regret. Just the satisfaction of walking away. And let's be honest, a 36-year-old model, even one in decent condition, couldn't compare to a sleek, low-mileage 21-year-old beauty in pristine shape. The fact that she was insatiable in bed, madly in love with me, and the daughter of a multimillionaire? Well, that was just a bonus. What a laugh.